This is Luke Maruziak, Chair of the Planning Commission. I call this meeting to order on Monday, February 5th, 7 p.m. 2024. So first, do the roll call. I am present, Chair Maruziak, Vice Chair Tessman,
Present.
Commissioner Aliff,
Present.
Commissioner Kilcup,
Present.
Commissioner Crone,
Present.
Commissioner Lambert, and Commissioner Smith.
Oh, Lambert's present. Sorry, I was being promoted to panelist.
All right, no worries. Don't see Commissioner Smith yet. Okay. I propose we go a little bit further down the agenda and then we'll see if he shows up. And we'll see if we excuse him or not. Okay. So public comment. So public comment will be accepted by in-person attendees. Remote attendees may submit written comments to the staff liaison. So I see nobody in person. Staff, have we received any emails for public comment? Okay. Okay, so there have been no emails for public comment. So that being the case, I move that we approve the February 5th agenda as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. At this point, we move on to the council liaison report.
Okay. Greetings, commissioners. I have 4 items for you. There's one I just want to get the number on real quick so that I cite it correctly. Yeah, okay, good. That's what I thought. Okay, the first is that we did swear in a new council member, Councilmember Cotton, who did actually join the council last December after filling a vacancy on the council. So she, rather than starting in the new year, she did technically start in December. But that said, we officially swore her in with the more ceremonial welcome at our last meeting. So welcome, Councilmember Cotton. We also, yes.
Just a minute. I see Commissioner Smith in the waiting bullpen. Can you promote him, please?
Excellent. And then a couple other things here. The council also extended the museum, the Model Train Museum MOU for 1 year, so that we can hopefully find a solution that works for everyone. It turns out that the commonly known as tree lot isn't going to be a sufficient location, mostly to try to satisfy all the parties that are interested in the project. But we're actively looking for another solution, and they seem to be interested as well in continuing that process, looking for an alternative location. So we're hopeful that that project is still moving forward, and we would love to have them here. And we, as a city, hope to make it work. Another thing is that we've had a number of discussions on the council about the operating budget. Those are the recurring expenditures we have every year, things like salary, road maintenance, park maintenance, and that we fund those through recurring revenue sources, things like property taxes, for example, and sales taxes that we can kind of count on more or less as being relatively stable, generally speaking. One of the things that we approved is a 0.1% sales tax for transportation purposes. So this allows us to invite members of the public who are not residents but still use our streets to come to the town and enjoy all that our city has to offer, especially our retail services, that they would pay a 0.1% extra sales tax that would go toward things like road maintenance and other kinds of transportation, mostly streets, but if we're being honest. So that was one thing that the council did approve. And then the other tax that the council did not approve because we don't have the right to, but instead that we approved to go on to the ballot in August for the August 6th election, primary election this year, is a 0.1% public safety sales tax. So this would be a similar increase to sales taxes that would go toward specifically public safety spending, things like police and fire. So these are two things that we believe strongly that the community deeply values, having our roads be up to snuff, which most of them are, especially after our recent improvements to some of our streets in the older parts of town. We also have the streets on the ridge that are starting to show their age a little bit. So our transportation sales tax, we think, will help out a lot with keeping on top of that maintenance. The longer you wait, the more damage is done to the substrate, and therefore the greater the cost to replace. So we try to stay on top of that as much as we can. And then public safety is absolutely paramount to our city. We have routinely been rated very highly in rankings of public safety. I'm not sure how exactly accurate to the details all of those studies are, but regardless, we have a very safe town. And I think that that's something worth maintaining. And I think that our citizens will agree when we come to the election in August. So we're asking the citizens for that as well. So that takes me to the end of what I'd like to update the commission on, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? Raised hand. I see a commissioner, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Tessman has a hand raised.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Hopefully it's not too far in the weeds and mostly for my edification, but I've read some interesting articles on the Washington State transportation funding situation. And one of the common criticisms is that the way the state does it is funds are allocated specifically for a given project. And so whether or not, X project ends up having an opportunity to advance ahead of timeline or whatnot, it doesn't always work out that way just because of the funding situation, because there's no real flexibility in funding. So one question I had, Councilmember Johnson, is with the city of Snoqualmie, is it a similar thing? So, we this tax passes, we have these increased funds. One, do they only go to transportation, or do they enter a city general fund? And then two, if assuming that they are only allocated for transportation, is there flexibility among projects, just out of disbursement from that fund, or will it get, sub-allocated on a specific basis, if that makes sense?
I think that I followed your question. So the transportation sales tax increase by Washington state law that we imposed would have to be spent on transportation related things. So yes, that would be tracked by our accounting, and if we didn't, then an auditor will catch it. And then as far as, where does that money specifically go? It would go into a specific fund for transportation causes, and that could go toward a project. It could accelerate a project if that's how the administration wanted to go about it. But the way that the appropriation works is the council decides, hey, administration, here's your spending on, your allowed spending on this particular item. So you're allowed to spend up to this much. And that's the appropriation from the bucket. And then the administration can spend that. If they need more, say a project is coming in, and it's more expensive than we thought, then the administration would request for an additional appropriation to cover the rest of the project. And then the council says yay or nay. And I think there's certain limits, like if it's under a certain amount, then they have a little bit of discretion there to fill the gap, but it's fairly limited. So I'm not sure if I fully answered your question, but it sounded like that was kind of what you're going for.
No, that was great. I really appreciate it. And I have a follow-up one after everyone's had a chance.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay,
Welcome.
Commissioner Kilcup?
Thank you. The question that I had was just regarding the timing. So you mentioned August ballot for the public safety.
Right.
What was the timing for the transportation?
I do not recall off the top of my head, and I don't want to make something up for when exactly that would begin being collected. Yeah, so
Okay.
I would have to look to give you an answer.
Okay, anybody else from? Actually, let me just pull the rest of the members here. Commissioner Ailer, if you have any questions?
No, thank you for the update.
Commissioner Crone?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Lambert? Here then, Commissioner Smith? Okay, Lambert and Smith, if you are speaking, I'm not hearing you. You might be muted. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Anything else?
I think Councilmember or Commissioner Testman
Yeah,
had a
Commissioner
follow-up.
Testman, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Testman?
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, just and then on the law and order, it's been probably a good couple of months since we last talked about the state of the police department. I know a couple of months ago formalized the new hire for the police chief. Are we still short on officers? Are we still trying to go out there and compete to get officers?
There is still the healthy competition for sure, but we are at or near capacity at full employment. I don't know if we're specifically at the exact number of how many officers have been appropriated, but I know that we're at least close. And at one time in the recent past, we were at full employment. I believe that someone may have left since then, but regardless, we're very close now.
Okay. So we're in a lot better position. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We're definitely not in the days when we were well behind in the staffing.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I move to agenda item number 1. I move to approve the minutes dated January 16th, 2024 as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes January 16th are approved. Now we move into agenda item number 2, the Emergency Housing Code Amendment, SMC Chapter 17.55.
Yes, we have our contract planner, Andrew Levins, available online to go ahead and do the introduction on this. Andrew?
Thank you, Emily. Good evening, commissioners. Like Emily said, my name is Andrew Levins. I'm a land use planning consultant helping the city process this code amendment that we're introducing to you tonight. Before we begin, I'd just like to give some background on what is being proposed. In 2021, the Washington State Legislature passed HB 1220 in response to rising rates of housing insecurity throughout the state. HB 1220 requires cities of a certain size to plan for and accommodate housing affordable to all segments of their populations. HB 1220 also requires that cities expand the zones in which certain types of supportive housing are allowed. In order to be compliant with HB 1220, Snoqualmie must make updates both to its comprehensive plan and its municipal code. The Community Development Department would like to take this opportunity to give the Planning Commission an early introduction to the changes that we are proposing to the municipal code in compliance with this requirement. Currently, the Snoqualmie Municipal Code defines 2 uses that are related to supportive housing. These are shelters for temporary placement and special needs housing. The state now requires that Snoqualmie define 4 additional types of supportive housing in its code. These 4 types include indoor emergency housing, indoor emergency shelters, permanent supportive housing, and transitional housing. The use table in the Snoqualmie zoning code must be amended to ensure that indoor emergency housing and shelters are not prohibited in any zones where hotels are allowed, And permanent and supportive housing and transitional housing must also not be prohibited in any zone where hotels or residential uses are allowed. Those are kind of the high level changes that we're introducing to you tonight. Those would bring us into substantial compliance with HB 1220. It's important to do this now because the deadline to make this code update was actually in September 2021. So it is important that the city act to ensure compliance moving forward with state requirements and to demonstrate that the city is making strides towards removing barriers to housing security as part of its comprehensive plan update. Staff is still in early stages of developing this update, but we're planning to have a report detailing the proposed code change available for your review and your input during March Planning Commission meetings. I'm available to answer any questions that the commissioners might have on this topic. Otherwise, that would conclude my introduction of the proposed code changes required by HB 1220.
Okay. Well, you put it up for the commissioners. Let me just poll the commissioners. Vice Chair Testament, any questions at this point?
At this point, no, thank you.
Commissioner Kilcup?
No questions at this point.
All right, Commissioner Ayla?
I'm a little curious about the timing. We passed this bill in 2021, and here we are in 2024. What happened the last 3 years?
I couldn't really tell you. I've only started working with you guys in the past year or so, but happy to be helping process this one now. I know it's a priority of the current community development department to make sure that we're in compliance. But I can't speak to what was happening in the past, unfortunately. I
Well,
wish I
thanks
had more
for-
context for you. Yeah.
Thanks for getting us up to speed and
Sure
where we
thing.
I appreciate it. Mhm.
Commissioner Crone?
No comments, just excited to get into the meat of it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Commissioner Lambert?
No comments.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith? Okay, I don't know if he is muted or what. I was kind of curious as to what barriers we have had up the last 3 years that will come down. But again, I'll wait to get the meat of it. But just kind of make a note there of the differences you'd expect going forward once this code amendment happens. So
Sure.
look to answer that. We could talk about that in March.
Great.
Okay,
All right. Thank you.
thank you. All right, thank you, Andrew. We'll move on to agenda item 3, environmental.
Yes, tonight we are going to conclude our discussion on the environmental element. We have Prateet here today to lead us through the rest of the discussion. Carla, are you there?
I am.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, Emily, and you guys will be bringing up the PowerPoint. I have a few introductory comments. I noticed in your packet that my cover memo I don't think quite made it in there, so I want to go over a few things before we get started. At our January 16th meeting, we presented the first set of environmental policies, and you'll recall there was 2 topics that were covered, environmental protection and then the climate change or climate planning policies. And you will recall that the Planning Commission had a number of questions to some of those climate policies and then asked staff and myself to go and take a look at Commerce's new guidance that had just come out a day or 2 before our Planning Commission meeting to just evaluate whether there was an opportunity to incorporate some of the model policies, goals and policies in the Commerce guidance and to take a look at that. You'll also remember that the director did mention that a separate climate element will probably be developed and brought forward sometime this year. And so any policies that we talked about in the context of the environmental element would move likely to a climate element. Well, I'll let you know that when I took a look at the Commerce guidance, they are robust. They had over 200 model policies to consider. And so it was clear that it was a little bit more of a task that could probably be done in the, the 2 weeks between our last meeting and this meeting. So your director did decide to hold off on moving forward on any climate policies as far as the environmental element. Those will get taken care of under the separate climate element that that she'll be working with developing this year. So all that to say is there's no climate element recheck with you by me, and that today's presentation is concluding the last bits of the environmental element. And you did not have any amendments to the environmental protection policies that we evaluated or that you considered last meeting. So, and at the conclusion of my PowerPoint here, I will kind of do a recap of everything. So with that introduction, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for that. I appreciate your grace in giving me that introduction. So next slide. So like I said, we reviewed environmental protection last meeting. So tonight you're going to consider proposed policies for water resources, aquifers, and critical recharge areas, the Snoqualmie River, stream corridors and wetlands, geologic and flood hazard areas. The goals of all these will be presented, and then a table similar to the capital facilities element that you evaluated at your last meeting will be presented. And there are some revisions proposed to the environmental protection policies that were requested by tribal review. And so we'll go over those. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to you to kick us off.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So our first topic is water resources, aquifers, and critical recharge areas. So as we've done in the past, I'll go ahead and read the policies as presented on this slide, and you can let me know what your thoughts and comments are. So the first one is preserve and protect natural surface water storage sites, such as wetlands, aquifers, streams, and water bodies, as these are critical features that support hydrological functions, water quality, regulate surface flows, and recharge groundwater. Coordinate the management and restoration of the Snoqualmie watershed through participation in the Snoqualmie Watershed Forum and the implementation of the Puget Sound Action Agenda. Ensure that local regulations for surface and stormwater management allow for and encourage low-impact development and natural discharge practices. Support retrofitting basins to improve stormwater management and quality. And encourage building construction that uses alternative techniques to minimize impervious surfaces and reduce harmful impacts to the natural environment and proximate waterways.
Okay, so go ahead, pause there, and I'll again poll the commission and just see if there's any comments on this slide. So Vice Chair Testman, any comments?
None.
Commissioner Aliff?
Just that I'm really helpful. It was really helpful to have this in advance. I had to Google a bunch of things and figure out what the hell they meant. So thank you so much.
Very good. Commissioner Kilcup?
No comments, thank you.
Commissioner Crone?
No comments, thanks.
Commissioner Lambert?
No comments.
Commissioner Smith?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for putting this together. Keep going.
Okay. Thank you. Preserve and protect. Wait,
Yeah, next.
next slide, sorry. Okay, did we just do that? Actively investigate and promote water conservation strategies to efficiently use the city's legal access to water and reduce the amount of wastewater to be treated through such measures as rotating irrigation schedules, and by incentivizing or requiring installation of water-wise landscaping throughout the city. Seek funding to support stormwater retrofitting and green technologies in areas where water quality is impacted by stormwater. Work with the State Department of Ecology, King County tribes, and other stakeholders to reduce or eliminate pollution sources and protect public health. Work in conjunction with King County to take corrective action and remove contaminant loading due to failing septic systems and stormwater runoff in susceptible recharge areas.
Okay, we've got at least one question. Let me pull everybody real quick. Vice Chair Tessman, any comment?
None for me.
Okay, Commissioner Ayla,
None, thank you for asking.
Commissioner Kilcup,
None, thank you.
Commissioner Crone,
None, thank you.
Commissioner Lambert,
No, thank you.
Mr. Smith.
None at this time.
Okay, I wanted to point out the septic systems. I assume these are grandfather septic systems. How many do we have in the city? Is it a major thing? And do we have plans to just move them to, you know, our normal waste removal?
Emily, is that something, I mean, I can tell you what kind of my experience with septic systems within city limits are, but you might have somebody there that is more knowledgeable than me for your specific question.
I'm not sure I'm the most knowledgeable on it, other than, yeah, we do have people still on septic. And long-term goal would be to get them off septic and get them hooked up to the city sewer.
Okay, I'd be very curious as to how
How
many
many?
there are. Is it, you know, fingers in one hand, or is it dozens? So, okay.
We can go back and do that research. Carla, did you have any more detailed information?
I was just gonna say that under the state law, if you have a water line, well, if you have a water line like within 300 feet or some distance, you need to connect to that, but there is not a state requirement to hook into a sewer line, but a city can charge a penalty for it. I'm not sure if Snoqualmie has something similar to that, but I know that that's kind of how the state law is set up for if you're within a city where there's utilities and you're not connected to them.
Okay, yeah, I would like to follow up on how big that number are. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. The next slide, please.
So, Mr. Chair, you would like information on how many existing septic systems?
Yes, I see it. Director Arteche caught that.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, minimize stream crossings, utilizing bridges rather than culverts whenever feasible, and minimize new utility crossing impacts when possible by using techniques such as bridges, tunneling, or other innovative methods. Participate in regional species protection efforts, including salmon habitat enhancement and restoration. Identify, prioritize, and eliminate physical barriers such as fish blocking culverts and other impediments to androgynous, sorry, I never could quite say that word right, fish spawning and rearing habitat. And finally, maintain infrastructure located within stream corridors in accordance with best management practices that minimize water quality impacts and pursue design modifications or alternative siting options for when significant alterations are undertaken.
Okay. Again, I'll do the round table. Vice Chair Testament, any comments?
None for me, Chair.
Commissioner Ayla,
None for this slide, thank you.
Mr. Kilcup,
None, thank you.
Commissioner Crone,
None at this time, thank you.
Mr. Lambert,
No, thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Nope.
Okay, so I have a question. Is a Riverwalk multi-phase plan, is that considered an alteration? A modification?
If it's within the stream buffer, I suppose it would be.
It almost has to be.
We haven't built anything in the stream buffer or altered anything yet. And I don't have a lot of detailed information about where the trail will actually be in conjunction with Snoqualmie River. So I'd have to do some more research.
Oh, take a look at it. I mean, there was a very detailed plan a few years ago. It's been a while since I've seen it about Riverwalk. That what was a Riverwalk? I mean, it was right adjacent to the river, you know, all the way through. So, be very curious if that is fine in line with this, or if there's something that this impacts. Okay. I assume that's still on the docket somewhere, right? So it's still on.
We haven't gotten to the design and build for Riverwalk. We're still in the property acquisition phase.
Okay.
So yeah, you might have been looking at some early conceptual drawings or more visionary drawings.
Okay. All right. Next slide.
Okay, protect wetland areas, functions, and values within the city and urban growth area and allow the creation of wetlands where feasible and appropriate. Restore previously disturbed wetland and stream buffers where feasible and maintain restored buffers. And ensure wetland regulations allow for conservation easements and other techniques to preserve their health and existence.
Okay, quick poll. Vice Chair Tessman,
Looks good to me.
Commissioner Aliff,
No questions or comments.
all right, Commissioner Kilcup,
Looks good. Thank you.
Commissioner Crone,
No questions, thanks.
Commissioner Lambert.
You know if the wetlands part of this would affect the mill site at all?
Will the wetland aspect of this impact mill site?
The proposed policy ensure wetland regulations allow for conservation easements, that?
Yes, well, and restore previously disturbed wetland and stream buffers.
I'm not aware that the wetland buffers were destroyed in the mill site. We don't have a actual development application in hand to review, but these would help. Yeah, these would help with any. These would help support and be aligned with our actual critical areas ordinance. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think the mill site redirected the river back in the day, in, you know, the turn of the 19th to 20th century. But yeah, okay, that's a good question. All right, Commissioner Smith.
Nope, nothing here.
Okay, next slide.
Okay, so we're moving into our geological and flood hazardous areas policies. Protect properties and ecological functions in the floodplain with development regulations that are guided by standards established by FEMA and the Department of Ecology. Pursue strategies to lower the city's classification rating in the federal FEMA program, which provides discount federally backed flood insurance premiums for property owners. And pursue the reduction of accelerated erosion and sedimentation due to construction and construction-related activities.
Okay, again, I'll do the round table. Vice Chair Tessman. Any comments?
Just maybe number 2 just needs, I don't know, that's clunky there with the, I'm assuming, so it's pursue strategies to lower the city's classification rating in the federal FEMA program, which provides, I'm assuming, discounted federally backed flood insurance premiums for property owners.
Yeah, if you get a lower classification in your FEMA rating, then your homeowner's insurance gets lowered because it's now then covered under the federal flood insurance. So I can understand that there might be a little confusion there. So
we're saying we're committing the city to working holistically to achieve a lower classification rating to then provide the indirect dividend to Snoqualmie property owners of lower flood insurance premiums through FEMA flood insurance program?
Yeah, for those properties that are located within the federally classified floodplain. So for those properties that are in a floodplain designation.
They would benefit if we got a lower rating.
Mhm. And you'd have to work with FEMA to get that lower rating. So that I haven't personally done that work, but I'm aware of that program that they can offer.
Gotcha. So it'd be a fairly big project. The city would ultimately have to work hand in hand with FEMA, probably multi-year kind of thing. Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
I can just provide a tidbit that we are doing that right now. It's a work in progress. We started in 2023 with taking steps forward to demonstrate to FEMA, that we had enough information to apply for a new classification.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good.
Right.
Good. Commissioner Aliff, any comments?
No comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Kilcup?
I would only say I have maybe a little similar confusion around bullet number 2 in terms of what exactly the city is committing to with that. Not understanding FEMA and their programs as well. My very, very basic understanding is those are very difficult to change and it's based on 100-year flood. So I don't know if we're trying to adjust this for 100 years out, or I think it just would be maybe adding some feasibility language to that to make it not a full commitment, but an exploration.
Okay.
City Director Attention?
Yeah, right now it's just pursue strategies. The policy would also work if you just put a period at the end of program when we don't need to tie it back to a discount.
Yeah, I like that better.
Yeah, just pursue strategies, and that's all we're doing. We're pursuing the strategies, that we feel we need to. And it is a very highly dictated process to get this new classification. It's based on points, and points, revolve around actions, and the actions revolve around analysis and documents and reports and things like that. So, but if it just said pursue strategies to lower the city's classification rating in the federal FEMA program, that would work.
I like that a lot better.
Yeah, that'll work.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilcup.
Okay.
Commissioner Crone, any comments?
No, none for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Lambert?
None for me, thanks.
Commissioner Smith?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay.
Okay, well, I captured that edit on that second policy, so that's great. So this is our last slide for policies before we move into the goals. So these are the last two for geological and flood hazardous areas. Protect areas with severe geologic hazard potential, limiting development in hazard areas or requiring development to minimize grading and enhance native vegetation to the greatest extent possible. And seek to restore natural vegetative cover and natural drainage features on degraded sites, including the removal of invasive weeds as necessary.
Okay. Vice Chair Tissman, any comment?
No, other than I'd just be curious what our severe geologic hazard areas are in Snoqualmie, but nothing else. If we have any, I don't even know.
I'd be curious about that as well.
I know obviously we have a different risk profile, for the Cascadia fault for an event there versus, something on the coast, but still interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, it'd be good to define that because you're actually indicating that there is a severe geologic hazard. I'd be real curious to know what that is. Okay.
I believe that the city staff is currently underway in updating the sensitive area critical area maps, of which geological hazardous areas is one of the requirements under Growth Management Act, including your critical area ordinance. And so the mapping that is underway will help inform what those geological hazardous areas are.
Okay. Commissioner Aliff?
When I see the invasive weeds on here, I'm curious what qualifies a site as being degraded. Principally, I'm thinking like I see a lot of public spaces in our community with a lot of invasive weeds. I just don't know if the sites would qualify as being degraded or not.
Define degraded, I think is the question.
Okay. I think that's a good, I'd have to go back and kind of look at the context of this, so I will make a note to take a look at that on what we mean by degraded sites.
Okay, good. Mr. Kilcutt?
I would second what Commissioner Aliff just said, as well as I personally don't know the difference between an invasive weed versus just any invasive species, if that's a different classification. And I'm mainly just thinking of the blackberry bushes. I don't know if those are classified as a weed, but they certainly are in my book.
Right. I do believe that the policy's intent is that for, because again, it's under the geological area. So if there's areas that are kind of like where you're thinking of sloped or had been cleared, and what has grown back is more of invasive weeds like the Scotch broom or the blackberry, and really what the policy is trying to get to is putting back native vegetation cover. The native vegetation species on maybe these exposed areas that were not replanted, or or have seed has gone to it over the course of time, and we're seeing these invasive weeds. But I will go back and go back to my notes on how this policy got developed. So,
but that explanation is helpful also. I'm picturing ferns if it's native around here. Just
yeah,
tons of
salal, ferns, exactly. You're going to look for some understory. You're going to want some types of trees that have, especially if they're sloped areas that have some deep roots. You're going to want some vegetation or trees with deep roots that like water. So there's a variety of species that are identified to be helpful for our unsloped areas.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good question.
Mr. Crone?
I just want to second the comment by Commissioner Kilcutt about the blackberries. But otherwise, I think the slide looks good. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Lambert?
Just no blackberry pie for anyone on this committee, and no.
Commissioner Smith?
Now, my only comment was going to be about whether earthquakes were included in geologic hazards. So we've covered that one.
Okay.
They are.
I had one general question. It kind of applies broader than this, but I was just kind of curious when I was thinking of weeds and stuff. A chunk of the high tension power lines runs through what is Snoqualmie. Well, what is our ability to impact those areas from weeds or anything? Or is that
I might
around?
defer that to Emily. I mean, those are in easements from, Puget Sound Energy, I'm presuming. So I'm not sure if the city has the ability to, I'm assuming your question is, does the city have the ability to go in and maintain what's growing in those easement areas?
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's kind of a cut. It's kind of a cut that just glances across.
Yep.
Oh, I can answer that question. No, the city does not have any jurisdiction in that. That falls under PSE, and they have very strict guidance on how they have to manage that.
And how big is it on either side of the stands for tension wires?
That's where it gets a little bit complicated, because you are supposed to limit the growth of trees so that they cannot impact the wires if they fall down, because these fall under NERC and FERC rules. So there's a general swath right underneath the towers that they limit the growth of large or taller species, and they also plant species that don't grow up to where they would actually reach the wires, so they don't affect it and would actually limit the growth of the taller species. But then once you get closer to the edges, it kind of depends. As some of our larger tree species get taller, they might cut those down even while maintaining the rest of the forest just at a lower level.
And the power company does that, or do we have any input at all on that?
The power company does that. It's all under the National Energy Regulation Commission and Federal Energy Regulation Commission guidelines.
And we have no requirements as a city to do anything about that.
Nope.
Okay, good. Thank you for that, Commissioner Lambert. All right, very good. All right.
Okay, so moving into our goals, these are, there are going to be 5 goals that, or it looks like maybe 4 goals that all the policies will sit under as they're organized to be included in the comprehensive plan. So our first topic for goal is environmental protection. The health and ecosystem services and functions provided by the city's natural environment are protected and enhanced, and potential hazards to citizen health, welfare, and property are minimized. And goal for water resources, aquifers, and critical recharge areas, rivers, streams, aquifer recharge areas, and other water resources within the city are protected and managed for multiple beneficial uses.
Okay, let's, any comment, Vice Chair Tessman?
None for me.
Commissioner Aliff?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Kilcup?
Only question I think I have is, would it be appropriate under environmental protection to make any mention of wildlife, or would that be a separate area?
What was that?
Would we include any wildlife into that first
Wildlife.
bullet, or is that handled somewhere else?
It is not handled in any of the other goals, so we definitely could make an inclusion of wildlife if you wanted. It would fit under that one. Other than fish would be under the stream corridors, but if we're talking other non-aquatic wildlife, it would need to be under this environmental protection goal.
I would open that up for the commission to weigh in on. I think it would probably be appropriate.
Yeah, I would agree. CD Development Director Pateche's made a comment. So we're going to add wildlife to proposed goal for environmental protection. That's good. That's good input.
Yeah.
Commissioner Crone?
No questions. I like the slide.
Okay. Commissioner Lambert? No? Mr.
No
Smith?
questions, sorry.
Mr. Smith? Any comments, questions?
First 2 goals look good. I like the addition of wildlife.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
Okay, great. Well, this will round out our goals for the Snoqualmie River stream corridors and wetlands, the natural hydraulic, hydrologic, and habitat functions and scenic recreational values of rivers, streams, wetlands, and natural drainage courses are protected. And then finally, for geologic and flood hazard areas, public health and property damage risk associated with flood and geologic hazard areas have been reduced while preventing irreparable harm to regionally significant ecological resources.
Okay. Vice Chair Tessman, any comments?
None.
Commissioner Aliff?
Sorry, none.
Commissioner Kilcup?
No, except for that was a very difficult slide to read, so good job.
Yes. Commissioner Crone?
No comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Lambert?
No thanks.
Commissioner Smith?
No, I think these are good.
That is a good slide. I'm surprised that the word geologic is in front of the word flood for a hazard area, but we've got the action to, let's see what we can define on that, but okay, I like the slide. Good.
Okay, great. So we're going to move into the table that I created that kind of walks through all of the policies, including the ones from your January 16th meeting. And I hope you were able to take a look at these in particular at the beginning of the table. It's because the table is really just organizing it in a different way for you to kind of see the work that you've done and how it's organized under the topics. But what was the city planning director did receive tribal comments after your January 16th meeting. So we wanted to reflect those. The staff did review them and recommended to me to include them into the policies. And so they're presented now for your consideration. They are an underline. So I've highlighted all the ones in orange that are ones that were reviewed at the last meeting, and then underline or strikeout are the edits that are requested, are recommended by the tribal review. And so hopefully you're able to have a chance to look at those and we can weigh in on if those are acceptable to the Planning Commission.
I mean, we ran into this actually with the tree farm land of, it wasn't archaeological, it was considered I guess
Sacred.
yes, close to a sacred space. So I'm curious, what is the purview of their review? I mean, is it, they get to look at Snoqualmie and say, yep, we have a comment there, or what?
They do. I mean, your director can discuss that, but the tribe does have a review purview in all jurisdictions in Washington. So go ahead, Emily. You can explain the process that they've gone through.
Yeah, we are engaging with them. This is perhaps one of their most important areas, environment. But there's simply information that they're sharing with us. It doesn't have to be presented in this way, and we can consider it to what extent we want.
Well, no. There's, I think we kind of stumbled on the tree farm area because the second to last one. I mean, just let me read this. Follow the principles of free, prior, and informed consent. So prior and informed consent with regard to Native American tribes for preservation of archaeological sites and traditional cultural properties. So the question was, I wasn't aware that the tree farm, I don't think anybody was aware the tree farm, for instance, we were talking about doing the train museum there, they would have had any interest at all. So my question is, have they defined the purview of where they would like informed?
No, they have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they could weigh in
Yeah.
if Commissioner Lambert wants to put a doghouse in his backyard, right?
Permit.
Well, maybe it should be a little bit more narrow, though, I think. But shouldn't we define the purview?
I'm not sure that they have given us that or want to share that with us. So.
Right, I think that's.
Chair, you've actually raised a question that's pertinent to this before, which was you specifically asked, is there some sort of documentation list or what have you that we can consult to be informed ourselves on what are their sacred sites, their cultural practices, etc. And so like it might be a little undiplomatic, but I think, are you asking like, are we effectively saying they have veto authority kind of on any area impacting the environment? Is that what you're saying?
Well, from a cultural archaeological site area.
Yeah. I feel like, and I don't know if we capture this, maybe not in environmental policy or whatever, but I think there's like a principle of like mutual respect here, right? Like absolutely there should be free, prior, and informed consent from the tribe, in this case the city government. I feel that exchange should be two-way, so that we're informed and our consent is informed, if that makes sense. So that we can appropriately, respect sensitive areas. But it's hard to do so when we're operating in the dark.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Yeah.
I have a comment as well. I am not as familiar with that language, but it sounds very strong, the free, prior, and informed consent, as opposed to where we came from. And again, obviously we want to maintain good relationships, but it seems like consent could be withheld, conditioned, delayed. It just puts us into a really bound spot where should the leadership position towards the city change, we could really put ourselves in a bad situation, as opposed to something that was a little bit more, I'm thinking.
Consult.
Yeah, consult with, or I mean, honestly, we want to have more of a notification, and then they let us know if further consultation is required from our perspective.
Dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah, these policies shouldn't be regulatory in nature. They should be broad and have a bit of a timeless feel and aspirational. So if we feel like we're getting into the regulatory mode, then they need to be reconsidered for the development code or other areas.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, let's just talk about the practical example that happened about 6 months ago. The council unanimously approved to put a train museum on the tree farm, which is city land. And the tribe said, we weren't informed. It's too close to a sacred area. We do not support this. And so then the council said, we'll take a step back, and ultimately something different is going to happen. And so the question came up then, and I still think it's fair now, is to me, it was amazing that that area would have fallen into the prior consent of the tribe on city land, as something that is in sight of a waste lift station that we put the Christmas trees every year on. So at any rate, I guess the request is still out there that we define what they consider their cultural properties. Yeah, archaeological cultural properties. I think that request is still on the table. And I don't know if you can do anything about it, but I think it's still on the table. I mean, I think all of us would like to respect and provide the right consultation, but we're kind of shooting blind.
I know, and so with that, I guess I don't want to ruin any relations here, but I don't really like that language change to the first portion of what are we on there, the fifth bullet, second from the bottom, because the original language does seem more aspirationally cooperative.
I agree with that. And I think maybe the word I was looking for in the feedback was one that Director Artechi said in the regulatory nature. Like informed consent is sort of inflammatory in my mind.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's some other policy that we could, borrow from to help inform this, but I'm not a fan of the changes, if that makes sense. And I like the chair's recommendation that we get really, if we're going to go this way, I would feel more comfortable if we were crispy clear on what these definitions are, so that we don't, we're not, like you said, flying blind when it comes to doing new things.
I agree. I also think that language that they inserted, it I guess to repeat, doesn't really belong here, but I do think it would be really beneficial to have, even if it was an off the record conversation with the tribal leadership on what they want to see from the city in terms of timing, because I think it's really unfortunate that as much time was spent and wasted on the tree lot to only have that be vetoed by the tribal leadership. And I think it's not about right or wrong. It's really like, when should that communication have happened? To avoid that much time wasted and on the project itself. I mean, luckily they're still in the mix, that they want to move forward with our city, but even if it's an unofficial agreement on prior to city council vote or anything to that effect, I think would be really helpful. Because I don't think, Chair Murziak, I think you have a really wonderful point, and I don't think you're going to get it in terms of identification of all the archaeological significant locations.
So I think I'm hearing consensus for that second to the bottom to keep that policy in its original language. Was there any other changes on this slide that were of concern?
Can I ask some follow-up questions of the other commissioners about the free, prior, and informed consent language? Like,
Sure.
just specifically, like, are you familiar with where that language comes from?
What do you mean? I think the tribe requested that be put in there. Is you talking about the phrase?
So that language comes specifically from United Nations Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Like, that's specifically the language that they use. And so that's where the language originates from. That's shorthand for a much broader set of conditions. But that's where the language is coming from. It's not something the tribe created.
I think that makes it even more like legally concerning.
That may be. I think it's important for us to understand what free, prior, and informed consent really means.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't know that came from the UN language. Oh, that's very good. But then all the more reason to define the traditional cultural properties. I think archaeological sites are, yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, define. I mean, is it all of Snoqualmie? If so, let's state that. And then at least we go with our eyes open that anything we want to do, we've got to inform the tribe. But I didn't think we're operating under that assumption right now. But after the tree farm, maybe we are. Is it possible to get clarification from the tribe or to revert to as it was originally written?
There's probably need to do a poll on who wants to keep it in the original form, and I can certainly reach out and find out more information.
Okay. A poll of the planning commission?
Yeah, about
Okay.
what they want to do with that.
Okay, so let's do it this way. I'll call each name out and you can tell, see how to put this here. Keep the free prior, keep the change language or revert back. So keep or revert is the two things. Okay, so Vice Chair Tessman, do you want to keep this language as written or revert back?
Revert.
Okay, Commissioner Aliff,
Keep it, please.
Commissioner Crone,
I'd like to revert.
Commissioner Kilcup,
Revert.
Commissioner Lambert,
Keep.
Commissioner Smith.
I fall on the side of revert until we have further clarification.
Okay, and I also am revert without further clarification. So we have 2 keep and 5 revert. And Commissioner Aliff and Commissioner Lambert are keep. Okay, I know that's a bit of a sticky wicket, but let's deal with it now rather than next time we want to do a train museum. Okay, nothing controversial on that slide. Any other comments on this slide? Yes, Commissioner Aliff?
Oh.
Commissioner Aliff?
I think we move forward on the slide. Can we go back again? Thank you. Was there any explanation besides the underlines that was provided with the changes in here? Was there any other document that accompanied this?
Not that was provided to me. What was provided to me from planning staff was a Word document with comments kind of in the margin by tribal staff asking for these changes. So I'm not sure, maybe Emily has had more direct contact with them. That was what was provided to me.
Okay, thanks. I'm just trying to understand some of the motivations for some of the changes. Not that I disagree with them, but like some more context would be helpful when we're talking through these things in the future.
Yes.
I hear very little from the tribe, so I try to listen to it when it comes through.
Yeah, Community Development Director Arteche?
I think the tribe is doing their best to try and get eyeballs looking at these, draft goals and policies, and they're just doing the best they can. So you get different perspectives, from different people in the organization, and I wouldn't. That's about as good of an answer as I can get. I mean, they are trying hard to provide us their guidance, their observations. Some of them may not know exactly what an environmental element is. They may think that it has more, there's more to it. So just try to understand that, they're doing the best they can.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay, so then on this slide, they're requesting a new policy, and that's at the top row. They're regarding best available science, including traditional ecological knowledge. So again, another capitalized term to protect critical areas such as wetland, landslide hazard, erosion-prone areas, and maintain these areas in their natural condition, including native vegetation preservation. So in this case, best available science is a requirement of Growth Management Act. It is a policy that I think we actually already had a policy regarding best available science. Yeah, the very first one. So this was in addition to adding the traditional ecological knowledge.
I see Commissioner Ayler has a hand up. Why don't we stop there and go ahead, Commissioner Ayler.
I just forgot to put it down from the last time I raised it. My apologies.
Oh, all right. Well, then let me ask then, is traditional ecological knowledge well defined? I mean, does traditional mean Native American traditional, or is that traditional as we all understand it in the modern world?
I'm presuming, again, with no context provided to me, that this, the way, because it was capitalized and that was from tribal, that it would be tribal traditional ecological knowledge. So there might be information or knowledge that's passed down through their culture and through their, through their traditions about the critical area. So, but that isn't, it is an assumption.
Capitalization that kind of flagged it as a list of things, right? You see the point?
Well, this is Commissioner Kilcup. That terminology scares me a lot less than the previous slide in terms of what we're pushing forward. I think, especially if it's prefaced with the best available science, which it sounds like is basic terminology for the best we know at this point. I think it would be positive to also include traditional ecological knowledge as part of that. So I feel good about that addition.
Yeah, I just would like definitions if we're gonna really highlight something, let's make sure we understand what it is we're agreeing to. Vice Chair Testman? Vice Chair Testman? You there? I think he's frozen. I see Vice Chair Testman's hand up. I don't see, let's see if he comes back.
He appears frozen to me, Chair.
Okay. I'll tell you what, keep reading the rest of the, so the only thing changes, they really, that
Yes,
first,
I mean, if we don't, if the same is true here, did I drop?
yeah, okay, you were frozen there for a while. Go ahead, Vice Chair
Oh.
Testman. You lost him again. He's probably talking for 5 minutes.
I think it would be helpful to ask, that capitalization is a defined term, what they're using for that definition to include. I think that's a reasonable ask as a follow-up since we're going back on the other previous slide.
Yeah, it's likely it's benign and positive. I just, if you're gonna highlight something that seems specifically defined, I'd like to understand the definition of it.
Mhm.
I can go back and get the definition from them.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah, or if we have it, I mean, wherever it is.
I don't have the definition. I just know that, from Google, it is, the information that's been shared amongst indigenous people for thousands of years. I'm assuming that they would probably have a parallel type of definition, information that they know, because they've been the caretakers of this land.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Lambert?
I would say I also agree with leaving that in there. I actually just read a book on this. It's called Fire Country: How Indigenous Fire Management Could Help Save Australia. And it is basically just, like you said, the traditional knowledge that's been handed down for thousands of years and how they've managed that land for a long period of time. I don't know if you're going to get much more of a specific definition, but I do think it very much should be considered. The traditional practices in Australia on fire science is actually changing the landscape down there and how they fight wildfire. So I think it should be considered.
Yeah, I just want to know what it is. I mean, it sounds good. I just wanted to make sure we understand the definition.
Yeah, other than, I mean, the traditional knowledge has been handed down for thousands of years. I don't know if you'll get much more of a definition.
And how, but so if we commit to this policy, how does the city apply that if
Yeah, I mean,
if no one in the city knows it?
You can't have waste lift stations because that's not part of the traditional ecological. I have a feeling it's benign, but due to the fact that they capitalized it, it seems like there's something very specific in mind.
Okay.
I mean, if we can get clarification, it'd be good. By the way, we like the fact that they've given this input. We just want to make sure we fully understand.
Yeah, I mean, this is wonderful contribution. I don't believe the city has had the chance to collaborate like this and seek out their knowledge and the information they're willing to provide to us. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Next slide.
Okay, so that's the concludes anything new for your consideration for tonight. So then the rest is just continuing to organize the policies under the different topic areas and the goals. So we can just run through, unless you had any questions on any of these. These are the ones you looked at tonight and have evaluated and have a couple questions for us to get back to you on. So
Development Director Arteche, could you just cover your notes of what points we covered? For the commissioners?
for Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Carla, feel free to jump in, but we talked about getting a better idea of how many septic systems
Mhm.
are in the city, you know, what percentage of folks are still on septic and
Right.
needing to go to sewer as a follow-up. We're talking about whether or not there are there's a design phase for Riverwalk, and how that might impact critical areas like the Snoqualmie River. We're talking about policy number 2. That policy seemed a little clunky, one of the commissioners said, and so we've revised it to delete the second half of that sentence and just ending it with the word program. Looking at mapping, where the geological hazards are, the landslide hazards and slide prone areas in the city. Talked about finding the definition for degraded areas.
With vegetation.
Yeah, with vegetation, what that definition is.
Add wildlife fun.
Yeah, we just talked about adding the word wildlife to the first goal. We covered a brief discussion about power lines and, you know, ability of the city to clean those areas up or change remove the.
Yeah, we clarified that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we talked about cultural properties and we, you know, we talked about finding the extent of where these are within the city limits. I'm not sure if we can get that information, but I definitely will follow up with the city's contact over at the Snoqualmie tribe. We also talked about maybe a more clear definition about TEK, you know, and how the tribe's been managing and in caretaking the land for thousands and thousands of years, and they might have a better definition about what that really entails.
Yeah, and please convey our appreciation for the collaboration and the input that we're getting from the tribe. We just want to make sure we fully understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this to me, I think is the most maybe the most sensitive of all the elements. I mean, they have, you know, the environmental element is very important to them. So.
Yeah. And the cultural thing. I mean, the tree farm is fresh in everybody's mind, right? So, yeah. Okay.
Carla, did I miss anything?
No, you got them all. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. One last pass. Raise your hand though. Is there any other input from the commissioners? I do not see any hands raised. All right, excellent. Thank you. We'll look forward to the summary and any additional clarification on those.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. At that point, we move on to agenda item number 4, the future agenda list. Did I miss? Well, actually, while you're calling that up, I actually skipped items of planning commissioner interest. Let me do that quickly. We'll go around Robin. Vice Chair Tissman.
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Aliff,
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Kilcup.
Only to apologize for missing the last meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Crone,
None for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Lambert.
Just one clarifying, are they ever going to finish removing the poles and the communication wires along the Elk Field?
Yeah, I believe they've completed that as of the last couple weeks. So I know it was a long time in the process, and Comcast did come out and evaluate the situation and then cleaned up.
Can we get some eyeballs on it? Because I drove past it today and there's still a bunch of leaning poles and wires hanging down on our sign and other fun things.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize it was still there. I'll reach out to them again.
Commissioner Smith.
No, I just apologize. The computer crashed right after I was having trouble getting on, and when I got on, I was on for a few minutes and the computer crashed and had to reboot. So apologies for that.
Okay. I have one thing. I do Google News and I decide to pick what I can, so I then look at the local stuff. And King County stuff comes up a lot. And there was an interesting article that said that our traffic miles in King County were supposed to be ultimately below the baseline from 2017, and instead they've increased 8%. It was considered a very big deal. And then it added at the end of the article that King County is very active at preventing sprawl. And for example, in the areas of North Bend and Snoqualmie, they prevented additional sprawl requested by the local city officials to change the UGA. I found that interesting. They decided to call us out for that. But there's, I know we have to analyze the climate before we get to that, and it's going to take a while to go do that. But it sure seems like the county is already setting goals and measuring the goals and saying, well, we need to do more here and more there. Is so on the climate piece, which I know is something, after we get done with the environment and all that. So it's just a bit of a concern when I discovered that it's like they had a goal, we're already missing it, and now we need to do something different. And it's like, well, we didn't really discuss that there. So, and then we got called out as a city as someone they had to make sure we didn't violate the UGA. So I found that very interesting. Yeah. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I'm not
I'll
sure.
dig up the article.
Yeah, is this the article that you brought to my attention a few weeks ago?
No, this is one I just read yesterday. I'll dig it up. I'll dig it up. It's in the Google News, the local side, but yeah, very interesting.
What was the name of the article?
Um, It was something effective. King County's discovered, more to do with. I'll dig it up. I'll dig it up
Okay.
and send it to you. But ultimately, it had a goal we were supposed to be, in progress to, and we were missing it. And it was road miles that we went up from 2017, which I don't think is that much of a surprise. But anyway, I will dig it up and send it to you. Okay. Future agenda list.
Alrighty, so here is the most up-to-date version that we have for the future agenda list. Based on discussion today, do we believe the environment is going to be extended to the later meeting?
Nope, we'll be done with we're done with the environment.
We're done. Okay.
I mean, unless the commission decides they want to revisit it again in
No, I
February.
mean, we'll obviously review it.
Okay, I'll send out the goals and policies to sign as well then. But our February 20th meeting, we have the community center potential design review to look at. So that'll be exciting. And then kind of follow up to earlier today in March, we'll look at the emergency housing. And hopefully by the time April comes around, we can get into the climate change given funding. Any questions?
No. Any questions from commissioners?
Just one comment in terms of, and I should have brought up in items of interest that in terms of the next meeting, because it's going to fall on a Tuesday again with the Monday President's Day holiday. I will be having to join either from my phone in the car, or I'll be a little bit late depending on when practice wraps up down in Kent.
Thank you for the warning.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, no, I think that's good. Okay. And can I share? Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
I actually found that article if you guys are interested.
Can you remove me from sharing? I think my laptop.
Yeah, it says I can't share while other participants share. Oh yeah, you got to stop sharing.
Sorry, my laptop died.
No, I'm trying to share what I am concerned about if I can. Okay, here we go. All right, do you guys see? No? Do you guys see anything? I don't see it myself. Did it share or not?
No, I don't see it sharing.
Let's try it again.
Here it comes.
You guys see it?
Yeah.
Okay. so-
Yep.
And I can send this around. King County's climate plan needs serious course correction on transportation. And so you scroll down, and this is the part that really gets me. Newly released report produced by King County looking at progress implementing goals of its 2020 strategic climate plan points toward a need to rapidly make progress in areas of transportation or risk missing climate targets laid out by the plan. I'm like, well, gee whiz, we haven't really talked about it. So then it starts getting into detail. The SCAP calls for 25% reduction countrywide emissions by 2025, which is next year, 50% reduction by 2030, 80% reduction by 2050, compared to a 2007 baseline. 1/3 expected gains are expected to cover improved transportation outcomes. And then there's a whole bunch of data here. And again, I'll send this around. And then you roll down here further. It talks about progress and boardings laid out. Here we go. Reduce car trips by 20% by 2030. So according to the report, in 2022, we saw a net 2% increase over travel per passenger vehicles for light trucks. And you get all the way down to it. We're supposed to have a 20% reduction from 2017 by 2030. So far, we've increased by 8%. And I'm thinking, okay, there is a plan. We're failing badly, and I never even knew anything about this. And then it has another graph showing how bad we're doing. And then just to highlight that, is it here? Yeah, here we go. County plays a big role in halting potential shifts in urban growth boundary, preventing ex-urban sprawl that increased car travel. Last year, it was King County elected officials from urban areas who voted to reject a proposal that would have allowed more sprawl near I-90 around Snoqualmie and North Bend. So I'm just like, wow, here we are all trying to be good citizens doing our work here. And it looks like without King County Council folks doing their job, would be just, in bad shape. So again, I'm not sure why all the stuff's popping up, but I'll send you guys the link so you guys can read this, but it seems to me that there is a climate plan that we're being graded at already. That was my big point of that. Is this news to you guys?
I haven't seen this one.
Does it seem real?
I had heard about that UGA kerfluffle, but I didn't know about the transportation numbers.
We'll be getting into a lot of this discussion with our own climate change element and vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emission reductions. These are all big complex studies that need to be conducted.
Well, they're talking about a 2020 strategic climate action plan. So apparently King County's operating under that plan, and they're saying we're already missing compared to that plan.
Chair,
Yes.
we keep asking for more buses.
Well,
Just saying, we keep asking.
well, no, actually, that's a good point. That's a very good point. We used to have a conversation about, how can we get more public transportation? And the answer is, I understand it was, you're too small to worry about. We're going to go between Bellevue and Seattle and, the big cities. We're not going to worry about you guys. So, yeah.
I also just want to note that I haven't read the article, but I think it was interesting that they would point out I-90 as being a problem when I commute every morning both ways. And I don't think that my commute is anything like the folks going north-south on 405 and I-5.
Oh, yeah. No, I would agree with
I
that.
think
Wow.
it's interesting that they would call out the I-90 traffic as being particularly problematic.
Well, it was kind of pat themselves. on the
I'll read
back.
the article and see if maybe they talk about that. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, they got a whole bunch of graphs and data in here. And then at the very end, they talked about how they prevented Snoqualmie and North Bend from doing something wrong. So caught my attention. Anyway. Okay. Work program. Item number 5. Actually, let me stop sharing. Anything more to talk about there? Or the calendar?
Oh, let me try to bring that up just a second. Yeah, so we try to keep track of work program items for 2024 and beyond, 2025. It is a moving target. And these are some of the things that we've listed on here for the Planning Commission to anticipate. Some of them you've already heard, coming back for design review on the community center, the climate change element. So we're working through, emergency housing. We're working through these right now.
Yeah, there we are. Okay. Okay. Any comments from the commission on this? You raise your hand. All right. Yeah, definitely a lot more to do. Okay. Anything else from the staff? All right. Thank you, everybody. At this point, I will move to adjourn our February 5th Planning Commission meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Hey, night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night, thank you.
8:32.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 8:32, yeah.